The 2021 State of DevOps Report released last year. It contained findings about how teams navigate key areas of software delivery. We talked with two of the researchers, Dustin Smith and Dave Stanke, about the report section on security. Hi, Dustin and Dave. Were there any surprising findings in this section of the report?
You would think that the more steps I add into my process, the slower it will be. But I think it's really about how teams are integrating these practices. And are they doing it by looking at their entire system and figuring out how they can best fit them into the actual process so that it is seamless? And that should be the idea with any of these practices. And we find that teams that implement these practices are actually delivering software faster and more reliability, and all while seeing value driven to the business.
So one thing that we found consistently, and yet I'm still surprised by it every time, is that we don't have to make a compromise or a trade-off between delivering fast and delivering well. We found that teams that have the best secure code practices actually are the same ones that are delivering the most frequently and having the shortest lead time from code to delivery. So we really can have both fast and market responsiveness and security and reliability.
What exactly did the security section of the report focus on?
I think one of the important things to clarify with how we looked at security is that we weren't looking at things like how many vulnerabilities did you experience in the last year. We weren't measuring how secure is your team. Instead, what we focused on were what practices have you implemented on your team in order to detect and recover from security vulnerabilities in an effective way. That's one of the key differences that we try to focus on for several reasons. One of the main ones is that people may not be willing to share how many vulnerabilities they've experienced, but they are willing to share what practices they've built into their process.
What did you find separated elite teams from the rest?
The real fundamental thing that we see is they do something called shifting left on security. The teams that are succeeding are the ones that are bringing security principles, knowledge, and practices leftward into their testing, into their initial development processes, and making it something that is known and practiced throughout the organization. They make a lot of use of automated testing to make it so that known vulnerabilities can rapidly be detected and kicked back for remediation. And something that really high-performing teams like to do is having guardrails or pre-approved libraries, things that developers can pull into their code with the assurance that those have been vetted by experts and that they're going to pass their security tests because they've already been built in. The security practices have already been built in.
Elite performing teams are more likely to build security into their entire development process. And so that means not throwing over your most recent change to the security team and asking for approval right before deployment and hoping that they do it quickly. It means pulling them in earlier, right at the design doc phase. Are you including your security team? And then are you including security reviews throughout your entire process as well? And then do you have tests that check for known vulnerabilities built into your build process? And finally, do you have pre-approved libraries that you can pull into your project and know that those versions of those dependencies are pre-approved and secure and ready to be used?
How can teams start implementing these practices?
I'd say go to the report and look at all the practices that we've outlined and try to identify some of those quick wins that you can get. Where are the low-hanging fruit? And one of the nice things about the report is that we also include industry benchmarks for each practice. So you can get a rough idea of to what degree has this practice already been adopted in the industry. That should give you an idea, even if you haven't met with your team yet, of where potentially are we lacking.
What would you say is the core idea from this section of the report?
Really, the meme is security is everybody's job. But that doesn't mean that it's not your job. There can be an unfortunate interpretation that says, well, if it's everybody's job, then I'm covered. I don't need to worry about it, right? Well, the bad news is, yeah, it's your job too. And we find that teams that succeed are the ones where everyone in the organization really internalizes the importance of shipping secure code. Now, that doesn't mean that we expect every person in an organization to be a security expert and a worldwide leader in software security. Instead, what we like to see is a consultative model, where an organization has a team of real security experts who are creating guidelines, creating pre-approved pipelines, and generally educating the organization about how to incorporate security into their work. And then everyone throughout the organization, from design to implementation to testing to operations, all can reflect that knowledge back into the work so that it's incorporated in their day-to-day jobs.
I think the overarching principle should be that we need to move from being reactive to detective vulnerabilities and more proactive and even diagnostic. And just noting that vulnerabilities are essentially inevitable. And so we need to be able to come up with practices and processes in order to recover from them when they are detected in a way that is quick and scalable.
Where can users go to learn more?
We've got a great resource on our Google Cloud site that incorporates this year's State of DevOps report as well as previous years. It's got a capability catalog that shows all those capabilities I mentioned. And for each one, there's an article that talks about what it is, how to measure it, and how to get started practicing it. There's all that and more, including a self-assessment tool that I really recommend. You can check it all out at g.co/DevOps.